Alright, greetings everybody and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the newest character to enter the JP side, Earth Veritas. However, before we get started, I'm going to make a slight note. Of course, the way the Veritases are being introduced is somewhat annoying. This one falls into a similar line as Water Veritas, where basically the data has been released into the game. Technically, it could be up on What of Calc, although at the time of this recording, it is not. And as such, it's obviously a little bit annoying because this is one of those ones that seems like it's not going to be available to players for at least X number of days, maybe a week. I don't even know. But the data is currently in the game, and we are going to take a look at it for whatever value it is worth. Also, just want to note that when talking about the Earth element, probably my weakest, no, it is definitely my weakest element, and that does mean that I'm a little less excited to talk about this character, but not that much, because Veritas units are cool, and you're cool clicking on this video. All right, so let's talk about it. So first off, this is a 120 version. His 140 will be available later, as well as his limit burst, similar to how other Veritas units have been put in. He is a fist type damage weapon character, and his TMR is his shield, which is considered to be a armor. So a lot of interesting stuff to unpack there, but the big things, if you are putting this character into a party, a strike-based party might be better, and strike-based damage might be just his friend, and he might be a really good strike tank, or at least one in a different element, which kind of makes him valuable. Now you can see the equipment that we have here. We have the Tiger Claw, I do believe it's some tiger themed weapon. The Alexandrite Ring, which is of course elemental resistance, which is always important, as well as accuracy as reflected here. And his Trust Mastery, which is the stats that you see below. 23 defense is quite high. And the ability is going to perk up some ears because it is ignore fatal damage on Trust Mastery. Cool. Not only that, it's also single target resistance, which is an interesting combination, but I think that there are some people who might want to just throw this on a bunch of different characters depending on who can equip it. But still, pretty interesting Trust Mastery, and one on a free unit that makes it quite good. 12,000 HP, about 1,000 attack, which is what, kind of what we're looking at. It could be a little bit higher if we actually had maybe some more offensive VCs, but pretty good for a tank overall. Just to shift over to Dario for a second, comparatively, he looks really on brand for a lot of the more recent tanks, given that the equipment not necessarily the best setup because I was in a bit of a hurry, but still, you get an idea. This is a very anti-physical based tank. He actually has a decent amount of accuracy given his equipment, and speed is about what you would kind of expect. Interestingly, not the most amount of single target resistance, but his shield does provide X amount of single target resistance, and we're also looking at AoE resistance of about 43, which is pretty high. Looking at from this combination of equipment, his resistances aren't anything kind of to really be too disappointed in either. 30% for slash, 33 for spear, which is kind of nice given the prevalence of spear units recently. Strike resistance of 28, which is also pretty decent into just the thunder element. Shooting as his weakest point, and magic at 15, which is why we've opted for a magic-based team today, just to kind of see how it pans out. Also looking at charm resistance, paralyzed resistance, and confuse, with a little bit of poison, of course, from outside sources. And if we're looking at just elemental resistance, 66% thunder resistance, which is pretty damn high, but also an increase towards earth, light, and dark. Now, that is coming from one of his support skills here. This support skill gives earth, thunder, light, and dark resistance, which is a pretty good mix all in all, and into some nice areas that he would benefit from. Taking a look at his other his other support skill, HP up, defense up, weakening resistance, so not as easy to debuff him. That was pretty strong on Volk, so I think it'll be strong here. And natural 8 generation, which is always, always, always very good. Now, we can't take too much of a look into his sub jobs, but from what I remember, Great Knight is probably going to be the most interesting one. And sub 1 of Monk, probably the least interesting, but does have synergy at least with his damage type. Now, really, really quickly here. A chance to reduce damage when taking damage from slashing and blow type. So basically slashing and strike type damages are reduced from his proper counter for his main job, which, you know, again, we've seen this recently, and I think those are 2 really good damage types right now. I, again, would kind of like to see some more spear, but slashing is more prevalent, so that's pretty good here. Taking a look at the sub part of his job, here we have a debuffer ability, which is pretty interesting. It is an AoE attack to the targets, medium damage while decreasing the amount of attack and magic power that the opponent has. As for his second ability, this ability, a bit more of a mouthful. So, especially if I can get, sorry, I don't have all of this written down. Again, bit of a hurry for this video. Greatly increases attack weakening resistance, magical power weakening resistance, and defense weakening resistance, mental weakening resistance, all attack type resistances, and weakness resistance of allies within range. So this one, a big buff, and might actually be worthy of just running his main job completely if you're getting this kind of ability out of it. We'll test it out once we are in. But let's take a look at his main job. So this ability, the one that we talked about earlier, float does not count for it, and it is re-raise removal. Not super exciting, as someone pointed out. This is not the thing that Earth is particularly interested in, but sure, fine. Good to have, I guess. Next ability is a damage barrier on this character, which does soak up a certain amount of damage. Also, when his HP drops below 50%, he gets a CT boost one time, small, and not only that, a 3-turn protect and shell effect on himself, which is kind of interesting because that isn't always the most easily dispelled, so pretty neat that he does have it. Damage type ability that reduces defense penetration rate on the opponent for multiple turns. This ability is when his HP drops below 50%. Oh my goodness. Sorry, I completely blanked on this one. Drops below his HP drops below 50%, become more likely to be targeted by enemies, greatly increase defense and critical evasion for 3 turns, and increase area attack resistance. Sorry, it also restores his HP. That's the one I talked about earlier, but forgot about. This one is his honeycomb barrier, so similar to Squall, that forces the opponent to come in closer. As the further away it is, the less damage it does. Also increases a bunch of resistances for himself, giving a secondary effect, which was talked about in the previous video. And last but not least, this one, another AoE attack that is decreasing defense penetration, which does make me think that I made a slight mistake. Is this one just his own defense penetration up? Let's see if I goofed. Yes, increase own defense for 3 turns. Got those 2 abilities backwards, but yes, this one decreases an enemy's defense penetration. This one increases his own defense. So enough talking about his kit and everything. Still relatively new, but we're going to go in and see what this unit looks like. Now, we are doing it against a magical based party because honestly, I think that his kit speaks well enough that he is generally just really, really strong. If there's one thing that I am kind of concerned about with him, at least for now, it's how much of his kit is geared towards like abilities that he needs to cast. Like, yes, it's very, very nice that he has all of these abilities that are doing just so many different things, but to be able to cast them all in time before the opponent gets in range, starts doing stuff, might be a little bit concerning. So we'll take a peek here. And of course, we got a lot of abilities to cast, so we will cast them first. Let's just take a look at his stats real quick. And we'll also take a look at Phelo's stats too. All right, generally think I've remembered them, but let's go on. And we are going to do, first off, the one in his sub job, because I am kind of most interested in that. As you can see, there's so many other things, but this one that just gives AoE resistance and the weakening effect prevention, as well as just everything else, I'm curious about it. So one more time, might want to just take a quick peek at these numbers and see what we got. 30, 33, 28, 15. Now we just wait for our enemies to get a few turns in, I guess. And now we'll take a peek. So taking a look here, AoE resistance has stayed roughly the same, all of that. And generally all of his stats have stayed the same too. So not any kind of improvement, but just debuff weakening prevention is what we are looking at for that ability. Guess this. Now let's fire off just a large AoE against this guy. Now again, I do think it's important to note that he is just generally not the best at anti-magic. So to see what here, Luel is taking a full blast of damage here. Vivi himself, just to show comparatively how much damage he's doing himself, but Earth Veritas taking it pretty well at about 4,371 points of damage. So not bad. We'll try a few other attacks just to see. And then last but not least, we'll also try just a single target attack. And there you go. There's a little bit more of the damage that we are expecting, as we can see here. Pretty strong against Luel, not super strong against this character, who has not really too much, but strong enough. So let's just pause that. And might need to just get rid of a few here, or a few guys. All right. Since we are apparently getting just off. And next up, we'll also try Helena, who, again, similar type story here. So we're just gonna, I think, activate his Trust Mastery ability, see what that is giving us in terms of resistance. So 15 before. And take a peek now. Up to 35, so about 20, and now also has that survive fatal damage, so maybe a little bit better. Get rid of some of these enemies, just make it a little bit faster, possibly. Although they still get a large amount of turns. Ooh, getting some shots from the opponents too, thank you. Test out what his damage is. Damage reduction. All right. Back to us. Again, take a look here. Isn't. And I do believe we have a single target ability here, and that does do a fair amount. So not terrible against mages, considering that he isn't even remotely built for this, and doesn't have the armor that most characters have. Obviously, his Trust Mastery shield is really nice, and probably something that you do want to run anyway. But it does make it a little bit, I think, more of a discussion. All right, let's Vivi do something. Skip ahead. All right, so now we're going to break into Earth Veritas' other skills. So we have this one. One of his abilities that basically the further away, the less damage he's taking. Not super interesting. I think I want to cast this one. Gives Protectant Shell, and this one, which is HP Restore, and test out both of those. So let's go with this one first. 7,500 HP barrier. We're going to see if it is. It is definitely anti-physical. And just a second, we will test and see if it is anti-magic as well. So no, it is still a physical-only barrier, which makes sense. He is an anti-physical tank, sure. And I think we also just want to start working on getting that HP lower. Because we do want to activate that. Let's see how he does against earth damage. And just get VV in here too. Why not? Enemies getting their chaining missions done. Cool. And now we can also, before these abilities cast off, get this second one. So let's take a peek. See how this ability does too. So gonna take some bit pain. Want to make sure that we're not doing too much, although we do have a good amount of damage. All right. There's this CT heal up. Interesting. Makes me wonder if I have just mistranslated this, because it doesn't seem like he is getting his HP heal at all. Take a second peek at this. Curious if that is just wrong or something. Well, let's take a look and see what some of his damage looks like. Not too terribly impressive there. Or here. Curious. Well, this is why we do the testing. Now that all of these abilities have been thrown out there, let's see. Damage reduction is being generally done better than what it was previously. And I think he is generally better off for it. And we can see the reductions working here, even against Mage, which is not his best strong suit. But I am just a little bit curious about whether this is actually kind of good enough. I mean, of course, something that is to be considered, these units are missing just a bunch of stuff. Still has to get his limit burst as well as his 140, so that might make a little bit of a difference. But so far, I don't know. I feel maybe it's a little more underwhelming than I thought it was going to be. He's generally seems like a fine tank, but not too much in the way of some of the auras that have made other units more successful. So curious if that will show up at a later date to maybe more complete his kit. But let's jump ahead and see if he can't attack the end. See if maybe that at least looks a little bit better. Yeah, I'm at a somewhat of a loss for words because in general, I think that his defensive capabilities, I guess I'll just sum up this video by saying exactly what I think about his overall abilities and performance in that, given that maybe I hastily translated some of this stuff. No, I definitely hastily translated. Overall, he seems generally pretty good, at least for now, for a character that we can't actually get yet or start increasing, which makes a little bit more frustrating to given that I haven't seen all of the exact details about him. Can't even where the pages. Sure. They bumped it up. But compared to some of the other newer units that have come out, he definitely is feeling lagging just because some of the other units with their auras feel more effective towards other units as well as himself. He feels like he's still incomplete and missing some other stuff, but his Trust Mastery is just insanely good, and he's not a bad tank against magic, considering that he's so geared towards physical, at least in terms of this video, and it's limited testing such as it is. So yeah, I think that Earth Veritas is one to keep an eye on. I mean, he's essentially free for if you... there it is. If you continue playing the game, he looks absolutely awesome, and he has a generally pretty nice kit, but compared to Volk, who was doing really, really good DPS numbers, he does definitely feel a step behind, at least for now, in my opinion. But I'll take a look at more data once it comes out and update it later. So this has been a first look. Thanks so much for watching. See you later.